we're fighting for racial justice. That's kind of a controversial term because different people define it differently. How do you define it? Just so we know when we're going into the book.
Yeah, so it means giving people what they are due. And in the case of racial justice, number one, it's shaped biblically by the doctrine of the image of God and what God says we are due as human beings. It speaks to the grand and simple, but oh so difficult to live out principle, loving one's neighbor as oneself. And it speaks to the idea, of, particularly in its racial dimensions, that Black people and people of color have not been given our due in terms of equity, in terms of distribution of resources, in terms of opportunity. And it speaks to the idea that we have to be intentional and be actively working to ensure equity and justice. We can't simply, I say this in the book, you are either actively working against racism or you are supporting racism, whether actively or passively. There's no in between. You're supporting
That
it.
feels offensive. That feels offensive to me.
Yeah, well, sorry.
I'm not being racist, Jemar, just by not being anti-racist.
Okay, so that's sort of a negation, a way of thinking about it in negative terms. But what are you positively doing to support racial justice is the question.
I have a Black friend.
I yes,
So,
you're absolutely right.
yeah, his name is Jemar. You're what I'm doing. Okay,
Right,
so
right,
I'm
right.
done. Am I good? Are we good?
Well, number one, why is it just one? Would they say the same thing about you? Are you assuming a closeness in the relationship that they wouldn't have? And then number two, beyond the perhaps benefit of your one Black friend, what are you doing for the masses of people who Howard Thurman says have their backs against the wall, the disinherited, the dispossessed, because we are affected by racism, not just individually or singly, but as a group. So how are we looking at this in a more broad-based way?
Okay. So it's not enough to have a Black friend. I need to back up and look at the big picture. Darn it, that's homework, Jamar. Okay, but if someone could write a book that would help me, that would be absolutely fantastic. Why do you use the word equity instead of equality? We want everyone to be equal, right?
Right, right, right. Well, it's a common misunderstanding. So equality, people think, basically means treating everyone the same way. The problem is, after hundreds and hundreds of years of inequality and oppression, it's not enough to treat people the same way. It's as if you're running a race and someone has 100-yard head start. The other person has been chained and can't move. You finally unlock the chain and say, catch up. That's equality. We can both run. Equity is saying, no, we need to do things to make sure I catch up to where you are because you have that head start illegally and unjustly. And in order to move toward that direction of equality, we can't actually treat everyone the same because we were not historically treated the same way. And so we have to do particular things, proactive things, affirmative things to make sure that everyone has an equality of opportunity.
But what do you say to someone who responds to that and says, well, you just want all the outcomes to be identical, and the outcomes are never all identical in life, Jamar?
Yeah, I would say, where did you get that? When did I say that? I
You
would.
said you want us both to be running side by side through the race and to not have one person finish ahead or behind, even if they're
Mhm,
faster or slower.
mhm.
That's what you want. Is that what you want?
I want an acknowledgement that people have been deliberately disadvantaged, and we have to do something about that. I want an explanation for the racial wealth gap, why it's not only large, but still growing. Is your
Right.
response to that that Black people are just lazy, haven't been able to do anything with the opportunities they've been given, just want a
It was
government
welfare,
handout?
Jamar. It was the welfare that broke everything. Do you know how many people I've had tell me that? You know, because I didn't mention welfare in my first race video, and so they said,
Gotcha.
"You missed the biggest point of the story, is
How,
how welfare broke inner cities."